has flagged India along with more than other US trading partners over the potential Chinese goods being rerouted through third nations to avoid higher American tariffs. Well, a new White House report titled The Great Transshipment Scam has accused China of operating what it calls a shadow transshipment network. India has been listed alongside Canada, the European Union, Mexico, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan and Vietnam among nations exposed to the risk of Chinese-linked transshipment. Well, the report was prepared by Peter Navarro, a senior trade advisor to US President Donald Trump. It focuses on illegal transshipment, where goods produced in one country are routed through another before entering the United States, potentially allowing exporters to avoid higher tariffs. And according to the report, the practice became more common after 2018 when the first Trump administration imposed Section 301 tariffs on several Chinese products. Washington said that all those tariffs were aimed at addressing what it described as unfair Chinese trade practices, and the report claims that Chinese exporters then increasingly begin using third countries for limited assembly, finishing, repackaging, relabeling, re-invoicing or changes in documentation. And such steps, according to Washington, can create the appearance that a product originated somewhere other than China. Navarro said that nations with lower tariffs, cheaper labor, weaker customs, oversight, free trade zones or preferential access to the US market could become attractive routes for Chinese goods. However, the report does not accuse the Indian government of deliberately helping China evade US tariffs, and instead India has been identified as a major manufacturing and trading hub where transshipment risk could exist within otherwise legitimate trade, and the report places India in its top tier along with Canada, European Union, Israel, Japan, Mexico, South Korea and Taiwan. And all these economies have large trade volumes with China and extensive export networks, making them important parts of global supply chains, and the report specifically points to India's Pune-Gujarat-Chennai manufacturing corridor. It claims that Chinese-linked products including pumps and compressors could potentially move through Indian production and export networks before reaching the US market. Navarro argued that if a Chinese origin product is falsely presented as an Indian origin product, it could enter the United States while avoiding tariffs imposed on Chinese imports. And one of the report's key estimates suggests that around $67 billion worth of US-bound goods were transshipped from China through Mexico, India and Vietnam in 2025. The report estimates that this may have resulted in approximately $28 billion lost US tariff revenue. Well, however, these are estimates based on a specific methodology and do not represent a direct count of every shipment involved in illegal transshipment. The White House also gives a much wider estimate of the potential global scale of the problem, and depending on the methodology used, the report puts the value of potentially illegal transshipped goods between approximately $40 billion and $303 billion. Using a central estimate of around $75 billion annually, the report projects major economic consequences for the US, including job displacement, reduced economic output, and billions of dollars in lost federal revenue. And Washington is now planning to use artificial intelligence in order to strengthen its crackdown. Well, according to the report, the White House is working with US Customs and Border Protection on an AI-enabled system that could analyze shipment data, routing histories, declared origins, components and production information. And the system would look for unusual trade patterns and flag shipments where the paperwork may not match the actual origin or manufacturing process. US officials believe that AI could help identify suspicious routes and shipments requiring further investigation, and the report comes as global supply chains have changed significantly since the US-China trade conflict began. As tariffs on Chinese products increased, companies shifted portions of their manufacturing and sourcing operations in order to nations such as India, Vietnam and Mexico. Washington acknowledges that many of these supply chain changes are legitimate. However, it argues that the same networks could also be exploited to bypass US tariffs. Well, the Donald Trump administration has warned that nations or businesses found facilitating tariff evasion could face serious consequences, including additional penalty tariffs, sanctions, seizure or suspicious shipments, and potentially restrictions on access to the US market. And the development comes at a sensitive time for India-US trade relations, and the two nations have been negotiating broader trade arrangements while disagreements over tariffs and India's purchases of Russian energy have added pressure to the relationship. Well, for India, the key point is that inclusion in the report does not mean Washington has accused the Indian government of deliberately helping China evade tariffs. And instead, the US is identifying India as one of several major trading hubs where China-linked transshipment could potentially occur because of the scale and complexity of the legitimate trade. Still, Indian exporters could face greater scrutiny in the US market, and American authorities may increasingly examine product origins, manufacturing records, customs declarations, shipping routes and other documentation, and this could create additional compliance pressure for Indian manufacturers and exporters, particularly companies that use Chinese components or operate within complex international supply chains. And the White House says that this goal is to prevent Chinese exporters from bypassing US tariffs and protect American manufacturers from what it considers unfair competition. And with stricter custom checks, AI-powered monitoring and the possibility of additional penalties, Washington is signaling a tougher approach to tariff evasion. And for India, the development could become another challenging issue in bilateral trade relations. While the report does not directly accuse New Delhi of wrongdoing, Indian exporters and supply chains are likely to face increased scrutiny and Trump administration. That's all for now. Stay tuned to the Savera for more updates. Do like, comment and subscribe to the channel.